postcards from Miguel. Wow, he's here in the United States. I can't wait to hear what he thinks about the country so far.
Dear Alicia, I'm finally in the United States. This country is muy grande, very, very big. I made a short list of the things I want to see while I'm visiting. Beaches and mountains, rivers and swamps, cities and farms, forests and deserts, oceans and lakes, hills and flatlands, volcanoes and canyons. Whew! There's so much to see here. I don't even know where to start.
You're right. The U.S. is big, but it is part of something even bigger.
The United States is located on the continent of North America. A continent is one of 7 large landmasses on the Earth. There are other countries located in North America, such as Canada to the north of the U.S. and Mexico to the south. The North American continent is in the northern hemisphere of the world. That's the half of the Earth that's north of the equator. And the North American continent is in the western hemisphere. That's the half of the Earth to the west of the prime meridian.
Some parts of the United States aren't on the North American continent at all, such as Hawaii.
So now that I know where on earth I am, how do I start to make sense of a place that's so big?
You can divide the country up into parts, called regions. That makes it easier.
One way to group the states in the U.S. is the Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, Southwest, and West. Each region has unique features, like what people do there, or how it looks, or the climate. Some areas are known for certain things, like big cities and factories in the Northeast, beaches in the Southeast. Farming and severe weather in the Midwest, oil and cattle in the Southwest, and minerals and mountains in the West.
So if parts of the U.S. look different, and lots of different things happen in the different regions, what in the world does the whole U.S. have in common?
Well, one thing that the states in each of the regions share is the national government. Its headquarters are right here in my hometown, Washington, D.C. One of the coolest things about living in Washington, D.C. is that it's the capital of the whole country. And guess what? It's not even in a state. The D.C. part doesn't stand for a state, but for the District of Columbia. It's land that was set aside specially for the highest offices of the national government, like the White House, the Supreme Court, and Congress. The neat thing about our national government is that it represents people from all over the country. So people move here from all over the country to work for the U.S. government. That means that I know kids from lots of different places. But because we live in D.C., we all can do some really cool things. Like going to the National Mall. That's a long, narrow park with the Capitol building at one end and the Lincoln Memorial at the other. We go there a lot, and sometimes take school trips to visit the museums there. On the 4th of July, we go to the mall to watch the fireworks. When the weather is nice, you can go jogging in Rock Creek Park. And spring is a great time to fly kites on the mall. The cherry blossoms are out, and there's usually a breeze from the Potomac River. Washington, D.C. has a lot of old and interesting architecture, like the National Cathedral. There are lots of monuments for presidents and people who fought in wars, like the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I like the Washington Monument the best. You can go to the top of it and look out the windows there. It was built to honor the first president of the United States, George Washington. In fact, come to think of it, my hometown is named after him too.
Alicia, first stop for me, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I thought this would be the place to start because it's where the US government really got started.
Good pick, Miguel. Lots of important things in America's history happened in Philadelphia, like the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That's when the American colonies declared their freedom from Great Britain.
Although Native Americans had lived on the North American continent for thousands of years, European countries began claiming parts of the land in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. Early European settlers came to America for many different reasons. Some wanted to be able to practice their religion freely. Others were looking for new land to settle. And some people wanted to find new ways to make money. Many of the early European settlers were farmers, and they made their homes around the Atlantic coast, because that's where their ships landed after sailing across the Atlantic Ocean. Settlers picked protected places along the coast, called bays, to dock their ships. A bay is a place where the ocean cuts far into the land, and because it's shielded from the open ocean, it's a good place to build a port, which is a trading center where ships can load and unload people and goods. Some of the biggest cities on the Atlantic coast grew up around ports. Boston, Massachusetts, New York City, New York, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Baltimore, Maryland.
Hey, guess what? I've got something for my list of the tallest, the oldest, and the biggest here in the US. I'm adding the city with the most people, New York City. The skyscrapers are amazing, and so is the Statue of Liberty.
Okay, now that you've seen the biggest city in the US, how about going to visit the oldest mountains?
The Appalachian Mountain Range extends across the eastern United States. They are the oldest mountains in North America. They were formed about 250 million years ago. At one time, the mountains used to be much taller, but erosion, by rain and ice, over millions of years has worn them down. The Appalachian Mountains were a major obstacle to early settlers moving westward from the Atlantic coastal area. But eventually, they found different ways through the mountains. One of the other ways that people found to travel across the country was by river. Rivers are moving bodies of fresh water.
Alicia, I'm near the mouth of the mighty Mississippi River. It's a wide river here. I'm not sure I could paddle all the way across it. And it's a busy river. There are big flat barges moving piles of coal and gravel and other stuff.
So now you're in the southeast. The Mississippi is the most important US river. Carrying goods from many different parts of the country.
The Mississippi River forms the backbone of a massive river system, which is a river and all of its tributaries, rivers that flow into larger rivers. The Ohio River, Missouri River, and Arkansas River are all tributaries of the Mississippi. The Mississippi River begins as a tiny stream in the northern part of the US and ends where it flows into the Gulf of Mexico in the southern part of the US. A gulf is a part of an ocean that extends into the land. River transportation can be used to carry goods, but also people and crops. Crops that are grown in one place can be shipped by river to ports along the river or at its mouth. The mouth of a river is where it flows into a larger body of water. Water is one of the most abundant natural resources found in many parts of the US. A natural resource is something found in nature that people can use. Lakes, rivers, and streams provide water for people to use at home, on farms, and in factories. Water can also be used as a source of power. Early Americans used the running water of rivers to run machines in factories. Today, huge plants harness the energy from rivers, producing electricity.
Okay, I've got another one for my list. The largest plains in the US, the interior plains.
Right. The interior plains cover much of the Midwest region of the US.
A plain is a large area of mostly flat land. In addition to the ones in the Midwest, there also are plains along the Atlantic coast and the Gulf Coast. Many farms and ranches in the US are located in areas covered by plains. Farms in the US grow all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and raise animals like cattle, pigs, and chickens. Besides land for farming, another important natural resource in the US is its forests. Trees from some of these forests are used to make lumber for buildings and products such as paper. Rocks and minerals are other natural resources found in the US. These are substances found in the earth, such as iron, marble, or limestone. Many rocks and minerals found in the US are used for constructing buildings, roads, or bridges.
I'm in the middle of Texas. I just had to see an oil derrick. Just imagine it. There's an underground pool of oil way below where I'm standing.
The Southwest produces lots of oil and other fuels, like natural gas, that are really important to America's economy.
Fuel is any substance that is used to generate energy. Fuel isn't only found in the Southwest. Coal is found around the Appalachian Mountains, and natural gas in the Southeast. Coal and oil are two examples of non-renewable natural resources. Once these resources are used up, they cannot be replaced. Therefore, people have to use these resources wisely.
Alicia, with so many people living in the US, how do you make sure that natural resources are protected?
Well, one way is by our national laws. Did you ever wonder where a law comes from?
Imagine this. You live near a small river. You and all your neighbors rely on the water from the river to grow gardens, to drink, and do things like wash your dog. Then one day, in another state upstream, someone comes along and starts dumping chemicals into the river. Suddenly, you and your neighbors no longer have clean water to use. What would you do? Well, you could get in touch with the people who represent you and your neighbors in the US government. You might write to them or visit them and tell them about the problem. Let's say that they agree with you that the water from the river should be kept clean. So what's next? Your representative could introduce a bill into Congress. It gets a number and a name. Let's say the bill is called the Keep Rivers Clean Bill. Representatives in Congress then discuss the bill. Congress is made up of two parts, the House of Representatives and the Senate. If a majority of representatives in both the House and Senate vote for the bill, then it goes to the President of the US for approval. If the President signs the bill, then it becomes the Keep Rivers Clean law. Now everyone who lives along the river must keep pollution out of the river and you and your neighbors can water your lawns and wash your dogs again.